Welcome all back to another video. SpecZ here, returning with another review for you. Number 4, to be exact. We discussed Dahmer, and he's one of the most notoriously known serial killers of our time. But there's more than one type of monster. The monsters come in many different shapes and forms. Some are born the way they are, and others are created through years of torture, abuse, and even violence. And sometimes they come in pairs, just like the pair we'll be discussing today. We'll be taking a dive into the second season of the Netflix Monsters line, Monsters, the Lyle and Erik Menendez story. My reviews are spoiler-filled, so if you haven't watched this as of yet and don't want spoilers, you've been warned. So pull up, relax, and who knows, maybe I'll throw in some king-size candy bars.
You will?
No. Now, let's get to it. Throughout this season, we explore the monsters that are Joseph Lyle and Erik Galen Menendez, two brothers based in California who orchestrated the murder of their parents, Kitty and Jose Menendez. We unravel the beehive of misery and abuse these brothers endured at the hands of their parents as they surrendered themselves to the darkness we all carry, took their parents' lives, and the aftermath that followed. To be clear, I'm not entirely sure if this depiction is accurate regarding the individuals involved in this story, so for all we know, it may not even be close to the truth. Ultimately, in any case, those who know the true facts are the ones that were there, and that'd be the brothers and their parents. With that in mind, this series is a dramatization, so it'll be treated as such. We begin going through this rabbit hole with episode 1 titled Blame It on the Rain, which opens up with some palm trees, the brothers enjoying their limo, some Kenny G playing in the background. Actually, that's kind of nice, I'm not gonna lie. Lyle and Erik are making their way to a memorial service for their parents. We then cut to 1989, approximately 2 months after the murder of Kitty and Jose. Erik begins having PTSD-induced nightmares, continuing to relive that unfaithful night. I can't say as I'm surprised, all things considered. Erik then calls his therapist, Dr. Zeal, to schedule an appointment. Makes you wonder what he wants to get off his chest. Meanwhile, it's Halloween time. Lyle's giving out king-size candy bars, being a total sweetheart. As we see throughout the season, Lyle is a real people person, always giving, never impulsive or temperamental. What more could you ask for? Erik is then confessing to Dr. Ozeal that they committed the murders, takes it exceptionally well. We then see flashbacks from Erik's perspective of their parents, nurturing and encouraging as they were, I'm sure. Then we go through cleaning up house, setting up their alibis. I will say, honestly, I thought it was cool to see them trying to get into a night showing of Batman. It was 1989 after all, and if you look closely, even Karate Kid Part 3 gets an Easter egg in there. Both films were released in June of that year, so makes sense.
Love the movies.
Ozeal then calls Lyle to come to the office, which he takes very well. Ozeal then takes off like if Chris Hansen's around the corner, calls his gumat to come down as a witness. Lyle then enters the room, says, "Fuck you, we're out of here." As they drive off into the night, so sets this series in motion, with a devotion to the riches that come. Leading into episode 2 titled Spree, we return back to the night of the murders. The brothers report the crime, police and forensics begin the investigation, combing their home in Beverly Hills. Lyle and Erik then come into the station to give their statements. As the title of the episode suggests, they go on a spree of the luxurious variety, spending money left and right on everything from shrimp cocktails, Hotel Bel Air, cocaine, Porsches, house parties, designer clothes, the list goes on. Reckless behavior, to say the least, boys. Shockingly, their monetary reserves are running low, and the search for the will begins. It amazes me the levels some people will go through for inheritances or estates left behind from deceased family members. It can be grim at times, which in the end seems superfluous to me because your loved ones are gone. No amount of money or property can ever fill that void. To me, chasing after these desires shows your true nature, your insatiable greed. Which asks the rhetorical question, did you ever care about them at all to begin with? This is of course assuming you have a close and loving relationship with your family. Otherwise, yeah. In this case, I can see the Menendez will now. Dear Lyle and Erik, how do I hate thee? Let me count the ways.
1,000, 1,000, 3.
Anyway, Ozeal and Judalon arrange a temporary residence, apparently. Cops are talking about Fidel Castro, and they bring in an informant named Craig, one of Erik's friends, who tries to finesse a confession out of him. I'm sure that was successful. Doc then offers an Automax business investment to the brothers, like all therapists do. In all honesty, my mind is not computing any logical outline where having a mistress living with you, your spouse, and child is a great idea.
The fuck are you out of your damn
mind?
Seriously, everyone in this season is completely batshit to a degree that is beyond our comprehension. It's a miracle they all didn't implode. But then again, no one's perfect. Moving on to episode 3, titled Brother, Can You Spare a Dime? We pick up where we left off. Oziel's mistress rides her broomstick over to the police, rats out Oziel and his trove of Menendez tales on tape. Who could have seen that coming? Lyle is then arrested and taken into custody. Erik returns from a tennis competition in Israel and gets arrested at the airport. The brothers Menendez are then reunited through their iron bars. Cages, essentially. At this point, the brothers are adjusting to life in prison and struggling profusely. I mean, there's no 5-course meals, wig tapes, hairstyling products, or even dimes.
Isn't that a shame?
The portrayals of the brothers were honestly very profound and deliciously mischievous in a way. First, we have Koch, who portrays Erik Menendez and knocked it out of the park. There was something intuitively sad about him. He comes off extremely sensitive with an almost passive layer, wrapped in a subtle blanket of innocence on the surface, but underneath, there's a muted sense of malevolence to him. As a side note, this Netflix Monsters line really should do a season of Richard Ramirez, aka the Night Stalker, somewhere down the line, and Cooper would be perfect for that role in my eyes. So Netflix, make it happen. The other half, the elder brother, Joseph Lyle Menendez, is portrayed by Nicholas Alexander Chavez. Lyle is the other side of that Menendez coin, more aggressive yet reckless and impulsive. In many ways, these brothers are like a more serious rendition of Tweedledee and Tweedledum from my perspective. Brothers who are as close as these two are, at the very least have each other and will always look out for one another, as brothers will. And you really see their chemistry on screen work swimmingly. You sympathize with them, their journey and what they endured, but on the surface, they're two well-off siblings who take advantage of their wealth and resources to treat the world around them as their own personal playground, at least how the media perceives them. As we come to see, though, that wouldn't be the case. Nevertheless, we continue on with the story, where we're introduced to a defense attorney named Leslie Abramson, who's portrayed by Ari Grainer. That's right, Meadow Soprano's roommate from college as the Menendez's defense attorney, just when you think you've seen it all. We're also introduced to Dominic Dunn, a high-profile journalist during that time. He had a daughter named Dominique who was murdered by John Sweeney. If you may or may not know, she was Dana from the film Poltergeist. Before that, Dunn was a film producer on some films, including The Panic in Needle Park, which if you haven't seen, I recommend doing so at least once in your life. He's portrayed by the one, the only Nathan Lane, a really great actor who's been in numerous plays, films, shows, and so on. Much like Dahmer, this season has a very well-rounded cast that, in my view, complement each other very well on screen with a visually pleasing aesthetic and setting. Lo and behold, however, defense attorney Abramson would find herself with a new client in Erik Menendez. They begin to unravel the quote-unquote truth behind the catalyst for Kitty and Jose's murder, and this is where the story begins its twists and turns. It's a very bumpy ride we're about to embark on. We push forward to episode 4, titled Kill or Be Killed. A fitting title, I must say. We start seeing more toggling between the past and present. We spend some time with Lyle, speaking to his side of the story with the defense team. We see more of their lives with their parents, particularly Jose, and how he treated Lyle. Now, Jose Menendez is portrayed by Javier Bardem, a really great Latin actor whom we've seen in countless films such as No Country for Old Men, Skyfall, Dune, and Dead Men Tell No Tales, to name a few. Easily, he's one of the best performers in this season. He really relished playing this Cuban-American captain of industry type who was obsessively involved with grooming his sons to be essentially Ivy League blue bloods. A classic expectation versus reality case that plays out exactly as you would expect. We also explored the sexual abuse and mental torture Jose put his sons through. It's a very vile and monstrous atmosphere, and definitely not the kind of environment you want to raise kids in, to say the very least. We continue with episode 5, titled The Hurt Man, which opens up with Erik and Leslie conversing as they build their defense for the upcoming trial, as we also walk through the torment Erik has endured mentally, emotionally, physically, and even spiritually. Much like I touched on with Dahmer, most of these issues are generally traced back to the parents and the environment that enveloped them from beginning to conclusion. That's not always the case, but it happens more often than we know or read about, sadly. We jump into episode 6 titled Don't Dream It's Over, which takes us back in time to the early 60s, where we meet a young Jose and Kitty exploring their first encounter. Kitty is just mesmerized. Can you blame her? Jose comes to have dinner with Kitty and her mother. Kitty's mother is having a subtle racist disdain for Jose, which is ever so present. Then they get married, live happily ever after for like 2 minutes. We then cut to future Kitty bragging about her loving family. Christmas time comes along, Santa baby's playing in the background, and facelifts are always expected during the holidays. Didn't you know? Jose gives Kitty a Mercedes. Lyle and Erik are given the gift of a Christmas book. Jose then speaks a little about his beginnings and the very book gifted to his sons that helped shape them to be successful in America. But remember, happy moments don't tend to last in these tales. Sometime later, Jose gets a call that his sons are involved in a string of robberies in the area. Takes it pretty well. Kitty is enjoying her dream home. Jose says, fuck that, we're leaving, and relocated to what would be their final home in Beverly Hills. Now we learn about Jose's frustrations and how he feels he failed as a father to Erik and Lyle. As an individual who came to this country at a young age with nothing, worked from the bottom up, where he sacrificed and persevered, Jose feels ashamed of his sons and their sense of entitlement, essentially the silver spoon kids who never worked for anything in their lives. Now I can understand his perspective. I also do agree, in life you do need to work hard, and sometimes that will come with struggle and sacrifice if you want to be successful. Not many people come from royalty or have families that are well off, so many have to work their way to that proverbial pot of gold. But even success can bring misery, assuming you allow yourself to be consumed by it. Nevertheless, Jose is having some 300-themed cosplay parties with a young Spartan. Kitty is dancing the night away with pink elephants. I guess you can say the fun never ends with the Menendez clan. A dysfunctional family without question, as we've seen. And it's a shame because I'm sure they probably had good intentions for their children at some point early on. But considering the outcome of this tale, that fell by the wayside. Later on, Jose isn't exactly thrilled over Erik's OnlyFans portfolio. Erik makes the decision to major in theater. Jose says fuck that, takes him upstairs, shuts the door with an ominous scene of the musical score slowly fading as the scene ends. The cruelty can be overwhelming, but you need that. I mean, that's what makes any horror film or series compelling to watch, be it fiction or non-fiction. Kitty then confronts Jose about his activities. Jose then tells tales from the old country. Apparently we learn that these are Menendez family traditions going back decades. Kitty has some similar tales of her own in marriage counseling. Now, everyone in some form or another has experienced abuse, some more severely than others. As a species, we're a very dangerous and volatile group. It's built in our DNA, our codex, if you will, and all we can do, individually and collectively, is our best to contain these primordial demons. As we see, not everyone is successful. Moving on to episode 7 titled We open up to the year 1983, the trial of John Sweeney for the murder of Dominic Dunn's daughter, Dominique. And Nathan Lane just gives an Emmy-winning performance during this opener, in my view. It's always a pleasure to watch him work. We spend the rest of the episode with Erik and Lyle preparing for their trial. We see Lyle trying to meet with relatives, friends, and his girlfriend to spin the narrative for their defense, making outrageous claims like Jose raped his girlfriend, Jose killed her dog and stuck the decapitated head in the freezer, does some duck quacking, Kitty chasing them around with a knife like she's Norman Bates. Lyle then starts to receive fan mail and gets intrigued by one in particular named Norma. We then start to see the inconsistencies in their stories, and I will say it's hilarious, some of the theories that he puts out there. They're just all over the place, like the babblings of a bad liar. You just don't know what to believe if you're the prosecution or even their legal team at this rate. We jump ahead to 1993, and the Menendez mania is all over the place. They're essentially celebrities in the media. The trial is commencing. Lyle takes a stand, states his rather convincing testimony. It really does make you ponder as to whether these events did or did not happen. My take is, don't trust what people say, trust the facts, because emotions demonstrate how you feel and respond, but they don't give you the whole truth. Anyway, the testimony was convincing enough to cause a domino effect with Erik, some members of the jury, and even Dominic. As I mentioned earlier, Nathan Lane's performance was outstanding, and I really thought the ending line he had at the end of this episode was very touching. But the case doesn't stop here. We continue on with episode 8 titled Seismic Shifts, and suffice it to say, a seismic 180 switch goes into effect for the brothers. Firstly, Judalan is back and takes a stand. Her and Lyle would have really hit it off, I think. It is now 1994, and to my knowledge, there were some record-making earthquakes occurring in California. That's life on the fault line, I suppose. I mean, it's like a planetary etch-a-sketch. Anyway, Erik is now on the stand, and the beginning of the end is near. He starts getting nervous, keeps fiddling around with the microphone, and ultimately fumbles and crumbles like a Jenga tower. Prosecution then starts stripping up Erik with their statements not aligning with the actual events that occurred. Some tension builds between the brothers. Abramson, to her credit, puts on a ferocious defense and closing arguments, but ended up a mistrial. 6 months later, the Menendez mania has turned sour. The ever so sly Lyle just found out his precious Norma made a book and recorded all the conversations they had over the phone. I'm sure the idea of him being a rambling idiot on tape was very well received with his legal team. His attorney says, "Fuck you, I'm out," and Erik gets a surprise next-door cellmate as a cameo appearance. A cellmate by the name of OJ, which is a whole other story. We conclude this tale with the 9th and final episode titled Hangmen. The year is 1995. Leslie is now representing Sly, Lyle, and Erik as they prepare for the second trial. As the trial goes underway, the Menendez defense is just being shredded, statement after statement, unraveling in and of itself like a moth to a flame. In the end, the jury found them guilty. The jurors deliberated on choosing between life with no parole on one hand or death on the other. One juror gets so caught up she ends up having a heart attack, which brings an alternate juror member into the fold, and from there the brothers are sentenced to life in prison. Lyle and Erik are then separated and sent to different prisons. To my knowledge, I believe it stayed that way until 2018. If I'm wrong, please let me know. We end with a flashback to the family going shark fishing, where Erik and Lyle make the decision to proceed with the plan, and by doing so, they sealed their fates. Overall, the Lyle and Erik Menendez story truly takes so many twists and turns. It's very much a roller coaster in that regard. It's a bit all over the place and it's very muddled. You can hear and see so many theories, so many possibilities as to what may have happened. It's like a sitcom at times. Erik and Lyle's portrayals by their respective actors were excellent, moving, and entertaining to watch, so that gets a big thumbs up from me. All jokes aside, the brothers committed a crime that most won't bring themselves to do. Most people will never kill their parents, no matter how much grief and torment they've manifested as a result of them. Those are simply boundaries that just won't be crossed. Now, the series was really effective in using the Rashomon effect, where everyone has a different reality and perspective of what went down, and it just opens the gates to endless debates on what occurred. In the end, no one, including myself, will ever know the real truth. Sure, maybe it was for financial gain, maybe it was for vengeance, but nevertheless, we do know there is more than one type of monster, and the Menendez brothers are in a category all on their own. And with that, my viewers, becomes a wrap. I hope you enjoyed, and by all means, sound off below if you care to voice your thoughts. If you want to see more, do yourself and everyone else a favor. Hit that subscribe button for more madness untold. On a serious note, if you have or are experiencing abuse of any variety, talk to someone you trust or care about. These are difficult times we live in, and it's important to take care of yourself and your well-being. That being said, it's time for all of you to scat. SpecZ will be seeing you again real soon.